Hello, my name is Jack Stanley, and I'm the co-founder of the Tech Academy. I'd like to welcome you to the Tech Academy podcast. The Tech Academy operates a 15-week software developer bootcamp. Our program can be taken online from anywhere in the world. You can find out more at our website, learncodinganywhere.com. That's learncodinganywhere.com.
On this week's episode of the Tech Academy podcast, I interview software developer and entrepreneur Dennis Kravets. Dennis wrote his first line of code at 13 and sold his first website at 16. In this episode, you'll hear me talk to him about his journey from enlisting in the Army to now owning a web development business and all his successes in between. Enjoy. When were you in the service?
I enlisted when I was still in high school. I had just turned 18, finishing up my senior year, and talked to a recruiter, late 17s, and just kind of got really interested in it. I was always interested with the military, and I knew that there was options afterwards. I knew that there's a way to kind of use it to your advantage of not only serving your country, but also to take advantage of the programs afterwards and get schooling, get education, get another, essentially another piece of your resume built that says, hey, I have dedicated myself to this. I have proven that I can be somewhere on time. I have morals.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot to it that just kind of speaks for itself. In the fact that you've served, that you've made kind of a big commitment, that it's not just I kind of worked here for a month and didn't really work out. I was late for, X amount of days and then just kind of left. It was...
Yeah, that doesn't fly in the service.
Correct.
Very cool.
So it was definitely an interesting experience. I was a 25 Charlie, which is a radio operator maintainer.
Okay.
So I not only learned kind of the basic, rifle works, was also more of a technical aspect too. So learned communications, encryptions, all that fun stuff. And which kind of gave me a little more lead into my entire tech aspect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why not kind of take advantage of it and progress. And so for a little while, I did a bit of a construction, just kind of because that was one of the skills I had learned in high school, as well as website design.
Yeah,
just kind of learned taking two paths at once. And from that, it kind of worked out for a little while until I got in a construction accident. And then it really made me kind of rethink my entire life of, that I took a row of nails to the face, which was an interesting experience. I can no longer feel the right side of my face, but I still look pretty. So it kind of really made me think about my life choices, about, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I have a passion for it, because this is what I want to keep learning, keep doing, or am I doing it because I feel like it's a job that I have now?
Okay.
And so that was one of the big turning points of why don't I get back into the whole tech world? I wrote my first line of code at 13, sold my first website at 16 to some guy up in Canada.
Yep.
It's always been something that I've always kind of had an interest in and kind of like a slight passion for until I actually started really, really getting into it. That's where the Tech Academy comes along. And then just kind of had the whole sit down. I still remember back in 2014 with you and Jack Stanley, and we just, kind of kicked it off from there. I got like a burning fire, got that excitement going on. And I remember within 2-3 days, made my whole payment, started doing all my schooling. After that, things just kind of started progressing really quickly. I don't know if it was dumb luck or just fate or what it was, but I mean, things just kind of really started popping into place.
What have you been doing? Tell me.
So from enlisting in the Tech Academy, I
love how you said enlisting.
Have it.
That's totally fine.
Technically, it's a bit...
I don't use that word anymore. Navy does stand for never again volunteer yourself. So I don't say enlist or contract or anything. Anyway,
I will say, for being a 15-week boot camp, I feel enlistment was a proper.
Oh, that is true. That is true. Oh man, I cannot escape it. I built it right into the thing. Oh, fun.
It's subliminally there.
Exactly. Okay, so after enrolling as a student,
After
at the Tech
enrolling
Academy,
as a student, so I finished up the 8 kind of basic computer course, the HTML, CSS, and then finished up the WordPress. And then from there, got into PHP and JavaScript.
Mhm.
So this is back when PHP was still offered.
Yeah.
And I started, I built my own first mini CMS. I was like part of the course, and I kind of started expanding more on my skills. And some of it I already knew. Other parts were kind of more. It taught me a different way to think about a problem.
Mm.
It wasn't just a, hey, I have one problem. Well, there's only one solution. It's, how can you tackle the problem in the most efficient way?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you write the least amount of lines of code, but have it be efficient yet secure?
Right.
And so from that, I actually was able to obtain a job offer from the North Clackamas Chamber of Commerce here locally as a website guy / admin assistant.
I remember that.
Yeah, and it was just kind of unexpected. I was like, hey, I'm still barely in the program. I already got a job offer. I'm like,
Believe we made hay out of that when we were talking to people. Like, we've even had people that are like, they're on their 3rd or 4th course and they pull in side jobs. Because honestly, I was pretty impressed. It was pretty cool,
Thank you.
But it's, you talked about dumb luck. You sold a website when you were 16.
Yeah.
You pulled in this thing with, Clackamas Chamber. I don't know if that's luck or you kind of have an entrepreneurially minded sort of outlook on things.
That's what I like to tell myself.
Yeah.
I've definitely gone through the military. I went in as an introvert and came out as an extrovert.
Yeah.
I did not mind being yelled at. I didn't mind whatever. It wasn't a scary thought to me. So having somebody tell me no, or being rejected up front, or having whatever it was, I had a whole different sense of confidence. And
Mhm.
I think really that is one of the biggest drives that I have behind me now. And how I got to where I am currently
Mm-hmm.
is just having this sense of confidence, saying that it's not oh, I know 100% how to do this one skill. It's I know that I have the skills to learn exactly what I need to do to accomplish this goal. And so that was one of the things for the chamber was they have a big WordPress website. And some of their problems were kind of, hard code. It was stuff I hadn't exactly dabbled in before.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I had zero doubt that I can go in there and just quickly learn it. Part of the courses that I learned through the Tech Academy was there's always this kind of stigma of like, oh, coding. As soon as you say that, people are like, oh, it's so confusing. It doesn't make any sense. It's a bunch of hieroglyphics.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, you can think of it that way, or you can take a step back and then analyze kind of, there's certain characteristics and properties to, writing code that just you can almost read it as a book.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't have to be super confusing. What you looked at probably doesn't make any sense because maybe if you're looking at low-level C or binary, it's not going to make any sense right off the bat.
Yep.
But, start off easy, then you get more complex as you go. And that was kind of one of the things where, I started dabbling into it. I started expanding my entire code base. I started gaining more assets. Along the way, being a lot more confident.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout all that I just kind of started networking with other business owners.
Okay.
And so, working with the
the chamber. That's
yep,
perfect.
where
Yeah.
it was just kind of again fate, dumb luck, or just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And so I noticed there was a business need for other local businesses that needed their websites done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I have these same skills. This is exactly what I do. This is exactly what I've done. They have the same platforms, same server setups. And I was like, I can do this. So, which led me to my next venture of opening up my own company. So here we go.
Were you still in school when you did that?
Yep.
Love it.
Like I said, still in school. It was just got, I don't know, just a weird rush of excitement and registered my business with Oregon. I was like, all right, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, just recently I had to renew it.
Yeah.
And, I started networking, started talking to other business owners. And from that, I not only built your basic contracts, but I also built relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And from those relationships, I started building a reputation for myself, in which I got one of my my biggest contracts was the weirdest day ever to this day.
Mm-hmm.
I got a call from an international number, and usually I never pick it up. It was this gal from the UK calling me saying she had gotten my name from a referral from one of the clients.
What?
Yep. And so I kind of told her I have a basic set of morals saying I don't do a lot of monthly packages. I don't do no real, cheap upsells. I'm like, what I pay for a product that's already built, I'm going to charge you. I charge for my labor, I charge for my skill, and I charge for my quality. And so she liked that, and then I kind of told her, I'm like, I do not feel comfortable doing a website for you, considering I haven't actually met you in person. Within a week, she actually flew here to Oregon to have an in-person meeting with me, and then which established my first contract with her almost like right on the spot.
Wow.
She took it all back. They had a big board of directors meeting, and the next thing you know, I'm being contracted to do another like an international project, and I was like, this is
how cool.
It was mind blowing to me. I mean, here I am, just 21-year-old kid, just like, all right, I guess I'm getting it done.
That's great.
And I mean, it was overall this whole experience has just been, surreal to a point. And so once I, kind of getting past all that, I still run my own personal company, more of a side gig.
Yeah.
And so from the chamber, eventually I got them all caught up. They went through a whole website rebuild. They went through a whole infrastructure rebuild. And so my position there was not as needed as it was when I first started.
You worked yourself out of a job.
Yeah. And
a good developer does.
Yep, I worked myself out of a job. And so here comes my next job search, which kind of worked out perfectly considering I had to have surgery on my shoulder. Mm-hmm. And my boss actually, we moved to a contract basis for my own company.
Yeah, okay.
So I had surgery, took a month to heal. And then from that, I started looking around, in which I found a position for a PHP developer at a neuroscience research institute.
Oh, neat.
So I kind of interviewed once, and we went back and forth a couple times because I did use a technical recruiter, and so the interview process was amazing. I feel I'm enough of a people person to where I'm not very nervous. A lot of it was phone interviews because they were both the people that I talked to were out of Florida, and so it really wasn't a big issue for me. But then when it came to kind of like discussing salaries, there was a little bit of a stipulation, and I totally understand from a marketing point of view or from a business point of view, you want to get the best talent for
the lowest price.
For the lowest price.
Yep.
It's just any sort of business logic. That's essentially your main goal, But I had confidence. I knew what my worth was, and I fought for it to where we both agreed on a well-rounded number that I was happy with, they were happy with, and next thing you know, I started working there. Within 3 months, got promoted to systems manager.
Hot dang.
So now, currently work as a systems manager there at this company, and now I manage a couple other junior developers underneath me.
How old are you?
I am 24.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Actually, one of the guys that's underneath me now that I hired is from the Tech Academy.
Oh, cool.
So I've interviewed a couple guys from here, and I will admit I'm a little biased.
Hope so. Wait, in a good way, right?
Of course, in a good way. I have a good taste about this place. I like to see what else is kind of coming out of your recent graduates, what kind of skills they have, how they present themselves, and overall it's always, in a very professional manner. And so
our job placement and outreach folks are just phenomenal. They're just absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
And they do a great job preparing our students. It's the one, like I was able to get all the technical data down that we needed to in the curriculum, but that area of soft skills and what the job search is like, not everyone has that sort of extroverted viewpoint that you have, right? How do you help a person who doesn't necessarily have that? I mean, this is a coding boot camp, not a military boot camp. So they're not going to go through the experience you and I went through, But yeah, our outreach folks just do and job placement folks do a phenomenal job in helping people. So I'm glad to hear the feedback on the other end of seeing people come out and you interview them that's being done well.
Yeah, I mean it's great. I love to hear from. I mean, even the job placement guys here, I'll still get a couple emails, every couple months saying, hey, are you looking for any other new guys? and I'll touch base. I'm like, at this time, not yet. But there was once I was like, you know what? Yeah, we are going to be looking for a guy here in a month. Kind of send me what you have guys start submitting their resumes. And so I started looking through them, and just that's how I found the gentleman Kyle that I have now.
Mm-hmm.
And he has not disappointed yet. He's been definitely on point. His skills for what he's doing now is more of a web dev. Is it's on point for what it is. Our company requires a little more specific knowledge of specific marketing terms and kind of like certain styling of a little more marketing eye kind of look on websites. But it's nothing that we don't teach them.
Okay.
Whenever we kind of take in new guys, we're hiring a web dev. So it's not a marketer, it's not a business major, it's not someone who is necessarily extroverted business savvy. It's people who are good at looking at code, who are good at making things look good on a screen, as well as designing for mobile and different platform types. Now, we give them the knowledge of exactly how we want it. We give them the knowledge of how things should be placed, as well as we like to help teach them as to, give them reasons as to why we organize things in such a way so that the web devs actually learn more on top of that and start designing from a more marketing perspective right off the bat.
Okay.
And so it helps us, with time, helps us with, turnaround. Like they start getting things busted out from a week per, product assignment to, 2-3 days. So,
awesome.
There's definitely a lot of, there's always kind of a learning curve with everything that we kind of toss at them, but nothing that no one has been able to, overcome.
Right. And that actually leads me to my next question, because I love it when I get an opportunity to talk to someone who went through the program a number of years ago. And, one of the things we try to send people out the door with is, the knowledge that they're going to have to continue to study.
Yes.
That will give you the practical skills, obviously, to get a job. You started a job while you were a third of the way through the program, right? But that when you get out there, there's new technologies. There's a deeper understanding of computer science fundamentals. There's a good number of things to learn. How has that gone for you? How have you approached it? What are some lessons along the way?
Oh man, this is one of the things I'm most thankful for is the ability to self-learn. When I got dropped into this new position, I had actually been taking it over from another guy who was actually a contractor. And this contractor, I believe he was making $250 per hour. And this guy was from Africa, and he's just a genius coder. This guy, he's worth his money. He codes efficiently, he codes effectively. And so my job was kind of pick up after him.
Okay.
Made it well known that I'm like, if he's this great, he has 20-something years experience. I just hope you don't necessarily expect that of me, right off the bat.
Right.
I was a bit nervous about that, but once I got in, I started looking at it. He had built everything in what's called a Laravel framework, which is a PHP MVC framework.
Yeah.
And so I had never worked with it before. Right off the bat, I was like, okay, how do I tackle this issue? What do I do? What are the kind of steps I need in order to make this, work? To which at first I was a little bit embarrassed, but I had went up to my upper management, my CTO, and I was like, hey, I've never worked with this software. I'm like, is it possible to purchase kind of like a learning software online so I can get used to it, learn what it does, how it works, and the ins and outs of it? And me being a little bit kind of meek about it, they were just like, yeah, sure, no problem. Like, we kind of expected it. Like, just let us. So they went ahead, fronted the bill. They gave me, plenty of time to go through the course and learn. Once I was done, I felt like a rock star. I was like, I can do this no problem,
Yeah.
So I started building some really crazy APIs that just connected out to like external servers, and then just processed a bunch of information from one of our CRMs that we had, and it looks almost minimal. I've learned it's no longer how many lines of code you write, but it's more how efficient.
Yes.
So
yes, it is.
Overall, I think it's under 1,500 lines of code, but it handles functionality for an entire business in and out all day, every day.
I was reading on Quora a few weeks ago. Someone had asked, the question like, how do you judge developer productivity? And there was a cool little discussion in there about a manager who had decided to rate and pay his developers based on numbers of lines of code. Now, anybody who's listening who is a developer knows that you can go way down a rabbit hole with that. You could take a for loop and make it 12 to 15 lines instead of 2. And so they spent that entire day produced an output that was about 50 times their normal output and said, okay, good. If this is how you want to roll, we're going to do it. And he went, never mind. Keep doing what you're doing. It's just fine. But you're right. It isn't numbers of lines of code. It's the wisdom and understanding of the problem set and efficiency that's behind a single line of code. That's why we get paid well. It's not, oh, I produced so many bricks in a given day. I laid so many bricks. It's like, exactly. No, I may have only laid 3 bricks, but they're the ones that are going to hold the building up. And if I use the wrong bricks, the building will fall down in 10 years, that sort of thing, I
was going to say one of my favorite analogies for this, and this is still one that I use to explain to my clients why I charge the rate that I do, is there's a story about a ship, and the engine broke down. So the captain calls 4 or 5 different mechanics. They all come through. They couldn't figure out what it was. So he decided to call this older gentleman who was no longer working, but he had done it his entire life. And he comes through with a tiny hammer, and he taps one tiny spot on this engine, and the engine just fires up and starts running. The guy's like, okay, he's super happy. He's like, awesome. He was here for maybe 20 minutes, no problem. He's like, hey, send me the bill. The guy sends him the bill for $10,000, and so he calls him back. And he's like, what the heck's going on here? How are you billing me $10,000? All you did was hit it with a hammer. He's like, can I get an itemized receipt? The guy says, sure. Says hitting it with a hammer, $10. He's like, knowledge to know exactly where to hit, 9,990.
That's awesome.
And that is extremely true to the sense of how to code, what to do. I mean, it's not always, hey, can you just build this little line of code to do X action? It's, a lot of people can tackle it, but what's your most efficient way? What's a way that's going to be scalable? What's a way that is not going to break as soon as you run, a little minor update? So, and that is why that's actually one of the ways I justify what I do with my company. It's one of the ways I justify how I code. Is you're not going to see the file size change a lot, but you're also not going to see your processing time increase a lot either. Yeah, it takes minimal time to process. I mean, one of the scripts that I run, depending on how many orders we're actually taking in, it'll run 3, 4, or 5,000 times a second. And I mean, without issue. So it's one of those things where I still work on myself consistently. There's always the next thing to learn. And kind of now personally, I'm actually getting into a more Docker technology.
Oh yeah, containers. Absolutely.
Docker containers.
Fun stuff, huh?
Yep. And learning all about that, the whole ins and outs, and kind of how they work with one another. And this was not something that I'd even heard about when I was going through the whole tech the Tech Academy. Yeah. But it's so industry specific where it's like it wouldn't make sense to. Yeah. And so that's another one of those things where I'm just continuously learning. I always try to better improve myself. One of my morals is learn something new every day. Or one of my values. Yeah, absolutely. Just whether you learn about something, another person, or about just stock market or whatever it is, but just learn something new every day. I try to aim it to be in tech.
But that would make sense. And that's fantastic. And it is gratifying to know that we had some role in that. I know that if you're not already a voracious learner, that it may not come that easily to you, and so we do have students that they really have to work hard to create that within themselves, right? Yeah. But I think people can hear your story and see the wisdom, even if it's not easy for them, of driving themselves to learn new things and experimenting. The fact that you're working with Docker, for example, I'm reminded of diving into MVC many years ago when it really wasn't that popular in enterprise. Microsoft's version of MVC, right? Other people had done MVC in certain areas for quite a while. And at first, it wasn't even being asked for on jobs. But then there came a point where not only was it being asked for, but the typical thing where you see, a technology has been out there or popular for 2 years, and the recruiters put out an ad that say they want 5 years experience in it.
Exactly.
Right? Well, I actually had the experience at that point, and there have been other technologies I've, gambled on and spent a little bit of time learning that have gone nowhere.
Yeah.
I think containers are here,
Oh, yeah.
Serverless architecture is one where just that is an area that people should be diving into, But these things are going to come and go. It's how are you at self-learning? How are you at without the pressure of a grade or needing to complete the boot camp in a certain time or whatever? Are you internally driven to learn these new things? I'm really glad to hear you are. Obviously, you're doing well in your career and will continue to, just based on that alone.
Yeah, it's when I was kind of going through the course, there's always this little tad bit of like how many days it's expected for you to finish it. And I learned initially, what would take 3 days, I was able to do in a 10-hour period.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of sped through it, but a lot of it was more of a refresher for me personally due to my previous background.
Are you talking about the one that you did being paid for by the school, by your company?
Negative. Here at the Tech Academy.
Oh yeah, right. Because
So,
you did.
Yep.
You built websites as a kid.
Yeah. So for me, it was starting off. It was more of a refresher than anything else, and so kind of towards the later courses, back when Python was being offered, or whatever, C#, it's like, hey, it's expected, week or 10 days or whatever. And so that would kind of give you almost a little bit of pressure, but it's an industry standard. When you're given an assignment or a project, and every time I go into systems meetings with my CFO, my CTO and CEO, they all ask, hey, we need this done. We're trying to do release this new technology, but we need this kind of structure built, which is essentially just another API. And that's when I'm like, okay, how do I assess it? How many days do I think it's going to take? Immediately, I kind of right off the bat have to, do a little blueprint and then give an estimate. A lot of the meetings that I do are typically agile, so we're kind of more stand-ups, quick kind of touch base, see how much progress we're actually making, see what kind of where we're at, scoped out for everything else. And from that, when I talk to my guys, it's I give them kind of deadlines that seem a little bit ambitious, but it's nothing that I don't believe they have the ability to do. Yeah. So here at the Tech Academy, when you start struggling, you first experience your own like problem that's not given to you in the course, where you have to go out, you have to figure out the technologies. Yeah. Like for example, I think the first one is in the MySQL course. Yep. Where it's like you have to go out, you have to learn a little bit kind of a small part of the code. I forgot what it was.
Yeah, but we don't hand it to you on a silver platter like the
exactly.
other stops. Yeah, yep. We start taking the training wheels off.
Yeah, and that's where you kind of first get your feet wet on, okay, how do you solve the problem yourself? Because it's not always here, let us give it to you. Here's the project. It's more of a, what's the thought process? How are you going to figure it out? And can you do it in the allotted amount of time?
And that's pretty much how the real world operates, isn't it?
I mean, it's business is business. If you don't make sales, you don't essentially have a job. Yeah. I mean, so in order to keep doing that, you got to keep working hard and meeting these deadlines. They're rarely do we ever not actually meet them, but if something like that happens, there's always a justifiable cause. Like, hey, our power went out and it snowed for 8 days in a row. Right. But that, thanks to remote desktop connections, now we can kind of alleviate that.
No excuse. It's great.
So
excellent. Now, what area of the country are you from? I forgot.
So I was actually born here in Portland, Oregon, but my family is from the USSR. Okay. So I grew up bilingual. I didn't know a lick of English till I was about 5 years old. First started going to kindergarten, and then I realized, hey, other people speak a whole different language. I'm like, that was a bit of a learning curve for me.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. Were you the first English speaker in the home?
I guess I have one older brother who's 2 years older than me, so he kind of started just a tad bit earlier. Okay. But we kind of both started learning English at the same time due to my parents. When they first came here, they didn't know English. They kind of went through a Russian translator of helping them get adjusted to work life and all that good jazz, and helping them get into programs. Now my parents both speak fluent English, and I mean, accents, of course, but
Yeah.
they've definitely adapted. And I think that's actually one of the reasons why code has been so interesting to me, is because I don't really consider it any different than learning any other language.
Yes, it has its own syntax. It has its own organization. Absolutely.
Exactly. And so from that, I've kind of, that's when I first started diving. I remember like HTML when I was like 10 or 11.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it was so cool that I can create a div container that like didn't actually exist, and I can write words where I mean, just on a random web page.
Yep.
And I don't know why, but it almost made me giddy inside. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And I like show my mom. She'd be like, that looks horrible. Yeah. And I was like, that's so cool though.
But I did it.
Yeah.
Still looks horrible. That's awesome.
That's where I learned my design skills could always improve.
I have design skills that can always improve, because when you start at the bottom, there's really nowhere to go but up.
Exactly.
Have you ever traveled back to Russia?
So that is something I always do plan on. Currently, I'm actually heading to China.
Okay.
I have a China trip scheduled here coming up in October, and it's one of those things where for the last 3 years I've kind of dedicated my life a lot towards my work and my technical aspect of it, and my company, to where I haven't really taken a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people assume that what I do, my fancy title, whatever, I'm just another developer. I just happen to fall into the right place at the right time. But a lot of that is also dedication. There have been many, many nights that I've had to give up, of going out, many weekends I've given up. I mean, I think the longest streak I've worked was like almost 40-something days consecutive, of Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
And just, I mean, work is there. Like I said, there are deadlines to meet. There are clients who have needs, and there's always some sort of emergency client situation that comes up.
Yeah.
And, it's part of owning a business. Some people get stressed out, and they kind of overwhelm themselves and kind of become almost anti-productive or counterproductive.
Mm-hmm.
But I have learned at this point now, it's one of those skills you kind of pick up of, all right, instead of freaking out about it, let's focus my energy into finding a solution,
mm-hmm.
instead of having this 30-minute like, oh, what am I going to do?
Yeah,
but
problem's still going to be there when you're done.
Yeah, no matter. Exactly. So time management has been one of the things I've definitely learned, I guess, mastered.
Yeah.
To say.
Yeah. Well, the military can definitely do that for you.
Definitely.
Like, the idea of working 7 days a week is like, yeah, okay.
All right. Do it anyway.
Yeah. Totally. Well, Dennis, I really appreciate you sitting down with me.
Eric,
I'm very, very proud of you. I really am. Like,
Thank you.
You're an exemplary graduate. I mean, a lot of that is you, but obviously we put the school here so that people like you can get the skills they need to go off and get where they were going to probably get anyway a whole lot faster.
Yeah.
So well done.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. I'm glad you guys invited me back for this talk.
Absolutely.
Cool.
How'd that go?
Awesome. That's great.
Excellent.
Hi, this is Jack Stanley again, co-founder of the Tech Academy. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. I'd like to leave you with a suggestion. We call this Jack's Random Tips. Today's tip is, it's wise to write things down. I recommend having a document or single location wherein you track all of your tasks. I can't tell you how many times I've had a great idea, forgot to document it, and it never came to fruition. I don't care how good your memory is, it's best to write things down. Nowadays, this is easy. We can take out Google Drive on our phone and note things down there. If you go to a meeting, bring paper or your laptop and take notes. If your employer assigns you a task, note it down somewhere. At the start of my day, I look at my list of tasks. If I think of more, I add to it. It keeps you grounded and oriented. This may sound stupid, but I have countless examples wherein somebody forgot something very important due to lack of documentation. I once verbally told my bookkeeper to transfer money. She said she would, but then she forgot. The result? An overdrawn account. If she had noted it down and regularly checked her notes, she couldn't have dropped the task. Another point on this, don't note tasks in several locations. Then you're bouncing in between a notebook, your laptop, your phone, etc. And you'll have the same problem. You'll drop balls. Just make a Google Drive document and note everything down there. That can be accessed online from anywhere. There is other software that exists for this as well. The moral of this story, operate on a task list and keep things in writing where possible. And again, if you are interested in enrolling in our software developer bootcamp, please visit our website, learncodinganywhere.com. During our boot camp, students learn several in-demand programming languages. By the end of the boot camp, students are well-rounded, entry-level software developers. In addition to our thorough curriculum, one of the things that sets us apart is that our program is self-paced, and we offer open enrollment, which means students can start anytime. Whether you're looking for a career change, you're unemployed, or fresh out of high school, the Tech Academy is the perfect option for those interested in breaking into the technology industry. LearnCodingAnywhere.com.